Hello and welcome back. My name is Chris and this is my channel, What the Chris, where half the time even I don't know what's going on. We are once again continuing playing Dagon, which, as mentioned, is based off of the H.P. Lovecraft short story of the same name. It is really cool, really interesting. I'm loving how they are bringing this story to life, and so we've just come aground of this very creepy thing. So let's get back into it.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
This is just really awesome. This is creepy. I'm just loving the pace that this is going through. So.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
I don't know about you, but I don't know how well I could traverse this. And it's just so cool, the details. Ah. Alright, sorry, we'll get back to it.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Look at these things. I'm trying to figure out if I can kind of guess what these things are supposed to be, but it seems like as we go further, the more sort of twisted things become. But yeah, this is so cool. Again, I'm sorry for not talking much. Again, it's a story being told. So, also, I forgot to mention in the first video that this game is available for free on Steam, and it'll be tagged below. But yeah, this is really cool. Let's keep going. Oh, we're not talking. Okay. Okay, so obviously that's a humpback whale. I don't know what these things could be. This is really cool. I love the detail in this. I'm not really the best on analyzing games, but just the quality looks amazing for a free game and such. Well, not that the game is.
That night I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
And I just love that we're getting these little glimpses of things, because if you don't know anything about cosmic horror, especially with Lovecraft, and I love this concept in horror movies to begin with, horror movies and all that, is not fully ever truly seeing the thing that's terrifying. It's just the idea. It's like walking around at night or being somewhere and you kind of imagine things, but yeah, I love it.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance, an intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again, and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
I also love whoever's doing the voiceover for this narration. This is a great voice for horror. And as I was mentioning before, um, that I love this idea of like not knowing what's going on, the uneasement, the slow thing. It's also why some movies like found footage movies work so well, such as like the Blair Witch, is you never see the thing, and that's what kind of creates the fear.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plane was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
This is beautiful. I'm not normally like this kind of person when it comes to video game design, but this is just beautiful.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Alright, let's go down. Don't have much options.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
I remember this part of the story. Oh, this is getting to that really cool part.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Dagon is kind of like the ultimate starting point of the Cthulhu mythos. I believe it came out before Cthulhu did, so um, that's why it's starting to get those vibes if you're watching this in that sense.
For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
This is getting interesting.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Okay, this is really cool. I love it. I don't want to stop in the middle of the really awesome part, so we're just going to go ahead and end this here. And I'm just really excited. We're getting to like the bigger build and the climax. So, uh, thank you again for watching. Please like, subscribe, interact. Tell me what your thoughts are so far. I'd really want to know. And thanks for your support. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.